Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name's Adrian Warnock, and I'm here with Ebby once more. And Ebby's going to talk to us a bit about what it's like to get ready for a stem cell transplant, or what it's like to be a parent whilst your child is both in terms of the practical side, the tests and things that have to be done, but also how you approach that psychologically and what it's like for a family to be dealing with that. So, Ebby, over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Adrian, for this. Also, I want to say thank you to this group for actually supporting our campaign to raise the funds for my son to have this much needed transplant. I appreciate this group. And funny enough, Adrian was one of the first people that contributed. And by God's grace, under 10 hours with the broadcast of the link and all that, we're able to raise the money, which is a miracle on its own entirely. Thank you so much.
Most welcome, Ebby. You're most welcome. And it was
Yes.
a wonderful thing to see the money raised, as you say. So now, of course, this is where the rubber hits the road, isn't it? But it has been already. It's been some preparation already. So talk to us a bit about that.
Yes. We had some tests lined up, and which we have done most of them. Um, for clarity's sake, as at yesterday, or Thursday, we did a full blood count or a CBC, and for the first time in since November, his platelets has stayed at 217, which is a total miracle on its own, without any help, any infusion. So the doctors are saying this is progress. So the tests for a child, because we are not going to use a total body irradiation to wipe away any cells that are left in his body, because from the test we had a 0.001% of leukemic cells. From when we started the chemotherapy, he had over 60% blast in his bone marrow. So the doctors are going to use some drugs, chemo drugs anyway, in high doses to wipe away the bone marrow before they infuse the stem cell. For record purposes, we'll be using an umbilical cord stem cell instead of the normal parent to child, because we couldn't get a complete match, and the stem cell was readily available, so we will use that. As of 2 weeks ago, they've done what they call a tissue typing. Then the test we have started on one. We did a lung function to check the lungs. We also did a heart scan. We did an X-ray first of all, but they told us no, we need to go back to do a CT scan of the chest. Then we had the head CT scan. We had an audiology, because they said normally the antibiotics they give during transplants can cause deafness. So we have to do that test to find out where he is as regards hearing. We also had a physio test. We had the dietitians come in as well. We also had a dental check, because they said most of the times during the stem cell there's always a possibility of having host versus graft disease in the mouth and in the digestive tract. So, and they also checked out all his teeth, his gums, just to be sure. We had an abdominal scan to check the liver, the spleen, the kidneys, and all that, just to check that everything is okay. But to the glory of God, all those parameters, he passed them all. And the stem cell, we're only left with the ophthalmology test, which is just to check the eye as well, to know which part of it will need any slight correction, because they want him going to the transplant in top shape, so as we will not have to start leaving the transplant now and fighting any other part of the body or any of his organs. but he's in good shape, in good hands, and by God's grace, we have a pre-bone marrow transplant meeting on the 19th with the bone marrow team, just for them to let us understand what we are going through. But they've given us some booklets to read. Quite scary anyway, but at this point in time, we don't have a choice. Ahead we are going, and by God's grace, we'll sail through. We are told that we have to be inside the room for minimum 6 weeks. Yeah, minimum of 6 weeks. Then once he's able to, adjust, like for instance, once the stem cell is able to graft with his own, then will be released, and he'll be monitored for the next 3 months again, just to check that everything is okay. So that's just the bottom line. Is a tough one to gather in your head altogether, but with God's grace and God's mercies, and we're enjoying you guys also pray along with us that it will be, it will be a success, and this deadly blood disease won't come back again in the mighty name of Jesus. We hope and we pray that it shall be one of the success cases. Like I told the doctors, you have the good cases and the bad cases, but our case will be the good. So we have that faith, and my boy too is also in top shape. We also had a psychiatric test as well. The psychiatrists had to speak to him, explain to him, and Great Ormond Streets, they, like I always say, they are holistic in their treatment. It's not just about the drugs. They also gave us info about the other part of this treatment.
Yeah.
So that's why we have the psychiatrists, the physiotherapies, the plating. They told us a lot of things that they will use to engage the little man, so he won't think too much of whatever he is. Then the dietitian came up with do's and don'ts, the food to eat, the food not to eat. And also, we are also being told about the NG tube. If we have the, what's it called? If we have the whole bit of graft in his digestive tract, we have to put in an NG tube. So by Wednesday next week, 19th, we'll have an idea of it. But tentatively, admission date for the transplant is on the 28th of May. All things being equal, we are hopeful. We are hopeful. Thank you so much.
So Ebi, talk to me a little bit about the impact that this whole experience is having on Nathaniel, but also on the family as a whole. I mean, to have been in that position where it looked like he was going to die, and then he had chemotherapy to get the cancer under control, and then it worked. But then obviously now you're facing the next step, which is, and at least the money now has kind of gone away a little bit, but now you're facing that step as a family, a little bit of uncertainty, but also the thought of putting your child through all of this. It's quite a must be quite a traumatic time for you as a family. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. To be truthful, if I have my way, I won't have him go through it. But, we have to do what we have to do, because we are told that if we do not go the transplant route, he might have a relapse. Lest I forget, yesterday we had a bone marrow biopsy, and also some form of treatment to the bone marrow, which is the IT, is called Interteca, of 3 drugs, which is cytarabine, hydrocortisone, and methotrexate, but in small quantities. Those are just to make sure that the leukemia does not move further to the brain. So, but they also took out a part of the bone marrow to do an analysis to check the level of the bone marrow again, what is going on in the bone marrow. But from the blood results we have found out that all his parameters had gone up, which is a good sign. So the prof is saying that he's very sure he's still in remission. So we have this window period to 28 to kick off. It's tough, when the doctors, they are very, very straightforward. They're going to tell you, look, this is how it is. Transplants, people die. He might not make it, he might make it. So by the time you hear all those things and you mistakenly go to Google to go and check transplant, you see, first advice I have for anybody, if you have any symptoms, please forget Google, because you're going to see so much,
Yeah.
the word is so much scary news.
Yeah.
You don't get to find out that there are also good parts of the transplant. I've heard people who've done it for like over 20 years, 30 years, and they are still alive. So many bad sides of this transplant. But what do? Prayerfully, we have to do what we have to do. So it's tough. There are a lot of things I can't explain to my family at this time, but I would give them information as needed, because I don't want any pressure on me as well. So as needed, I will give them info. But prayerfully, we are going into it, and he will come out a success.
Yeah. That's really quite useful. So what advice would you give to someone watching this who's either about to enter the stem cell sort of process, or their child is about to enter the stem cell process? Have you got any sort of pithy advice that you'd like to give them?
No. There's nothing much to say. I don't wish anyone to go into it. But then again, you have to do what you have to do, and be positive that your own case will be different.
So it's about hope, I guess.
Yes, hope. Yes, hope.
I think that's absolutely. My father had a stem cell transplant, actually. His own stem cells given back to him. And for him, it was obviously, he'd had a number of treatments. And again, he had quite an aggressive blood cancer. So these are often used in the more aggressive blood cancers to try and ensure that it stays away. Because obviously, if an aggressive blood cancer comes back, then you're back in a life-threatening situation. Now, what was interesting about him, though, was that he got to the point where he was on his third lot of chemotherapy. So he'd had two different types of chemotherapy, and he was on his third lot. And he was about to start his third lot. And they said to him, look, these other two haven't worked. So if we could just stop. But this third one has only got a 1 in 3 chance of working. So the doctor said some people would just not bother at this point. They said, look, I've had enough, life, and just let me go away, because he was told that if he didn't take the stem cells, he'd have 0 chance of surviving. But if his chemotherapy, he'd have a 1 in 3 chance of being able to then do the stem cells and hopefully be all right. And that's what happened. And the interesting thing is, you can sometimes think 1 in 3 chance, that means 2 in 3 that it won't work, and you can focus on the negative. This was like, well, look, I might have and cling on to hope. And it worked for him. And that was 2.5 years ago he had his stem cell. And so he's doing really well. In fact, in some ways he's doing better than me, and I didn't have a stem cell, but hey, that's a whole different story. But so I think that's a good sort of message for people, isn't it? To sort of cling on to hope.
Yeah. You have to cling on to hope. Hope is just the only thing at this point in time. It's good to have a cry once in a while.
Yes.
It's good to feel bad. It's good to feel like, why me and all that, but then you have no choice. You see, what I've learned about this leukemia cancer, except a miracle, it is a crazy situation.
Yeah.
Except a miracle. Like you rightly said about my son's case, what they gave him was for palliative care. You understand? The chemo they gave him was for palliative.
Yeah, just to make it easier
for him. Just to make him have a good quality of life for the next 6 months. But along the line, the doctors just decided to do some jiggling of the drugs, and the boy went back into remission. under 1 month. So which now made them to have a rethink, which is a miracle too on its own. So
yeah, it's amazing. So it just goes to show, isn't it? There's always something to hope for, I think.
yeah, yes, please. There's something to hope for. I just intend to focus on the positives and leave the negatives right now. Yeah. Because people have done transplants and they didn't have one single issue.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Those are the stories I like to feed in my head now.
Yeah, so you go into it with your eyes open, but you go into it hoping for the best. You go into you mentioned that it's okay to have those moments where you feel upset, you're worried, you cry. That's good. After all, Jesus cried. If it's good enough for him, it's good enough for the rest of us.
Definitely.
But at the same time, to go in there with hope and with confidence. I think that's a great place to leave our recording today. So
okay.
thank you very much for joining us on the recording, Ebi.
Okay, thank you so much.